and welcome back to the next video in this extended series of videos released in succession, providing a full read-through of every witness statement from the UK trial between Johnny Depp and NGN. I hope you find this series informative, and here we go. John Christopher Depp II, a News Group Newspapers, and Dan Wootton. Second witness statement of Kevin Murphy. I was previously employed by the claimant, Mr. John Christopher Depp II, for nearly 8 years as an estate manager. I confirm that, save where otherwise appears, the facts stated in this witness statement are within my own knowledge and that those facts are true to the best of my knowledge and belief. Where facts are not within my own knowledge, I confirm that they are true to the best of my information and belief, and the source of that information is set out. I make this witness statement in support of the claimant's claim in these proceedings. This is my second witness statement in this claim. I make the statement in response to the disclosure of a document by the defendants on 14th of June 2020 referred to below. Paragraphs 7 to 9 of my first witness statement, dated 12th of December 2019, addressed Ms. Heard's requests to me to obtain false evidence for proceedings in Australia. I stand by that evidence and make this further statement in order to expand on that issue. My involvement in arrangements for the dogs to travel to Australia. I was involved in the process to ready the dogs for travel to Australia in April 2015, from start to finish. I hired the agency that facilitated the paperwork and scheduled the veterinary work that needed to be accomplished prior to the dogs travelling to Australia. I was also the person that cancelled the contract for services with All Pet Travel, the company dealing with the paperwork, after multiple conversations with Ms. Heard regarding the status of the necessary paperwork and the fact that the paperwork was not going to be completed in time for the dogs to travel to Australia. I refer to the invoice dated 9th of April 2015 from All Pet Travel at page 1 of KM2, which refers to Australia travel planning cancellation, and also a copy of a letter from Ms. Debbie Rogers at All Pet Travel dated 16th of June 2020 is enclosed at page 2 of Exhibit KM2, which supports this fact. I began to have concerns in mid to late March 2015 that timing constraints were not going to allow the dogs to be vaccinated in time to travel to Australia by mid-April 2015. I expressed those concerns to Ms. Heard in person, by phone, and in emails. Ms. Heard asked me on several occasions if there was any other way to get the dogs to Australia. I investigated different options, but they involved allowing the dogs to fly cargo on another flight. Ms. Heard would not allow that, so we ran out of options. At this point, Ms. Heard appeared to accept that there was nothing else that we could do and that the dogs would not be able to travel to Australia in time for her flight. See the emails exchanged between Ms. Heard and I at pages 3 to 8 of Exhibit KM2. I explained to Ms. Heard on several occasions that bringing animals into Australia was like no other country that we had sent the dogs to before, in terms of length and specificity of the paperwork process and mandatory quarantining upon arrival. I also explained to Ms. Heard several times the fact that trying to take the dogs into Australia without completing the mandatory process was illegal and could result in very harsh penalties, including euthanizing the dogs, fines, and potential jail time. Prior to Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp leaving for Australia, I notified Ms. Christy Dombrowski, Mr. Nathan Holmes, Mr. Stephen Duders, Mr. Jerry Judge, Mr. Malcolm Connolly, Mr. Sean Bett, and Mr. Joel Mandel that the dogs were not allowed to be taken to Australia. I further explained that the dogs should not be taken because it would be illegal and that there could be severe penalties. I made a point of discussing this matter because Ms. Heard had brought the dogs into the Bahamas without paperwork and vaccinations in other instances in July 2014, and in knowledge of the risks of doing so. I refer to a photograph taken of Boo in July 2014 in the Bahamas at page 9 of Exhibit KM2, which I believe was that occasion. Due to Amber's inconsideration of the proper precautions required, there was a heightened awareness between me, staff, and the business office of proper paperwork being in place for future trips. At no time did I discuss this matter with Mr. Depp because he never wanted the dogs to travel on any occasion, as he felt they would have better care in Los Angeles with staff. Upon getting to the morning following Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's departure for Australia, I was shocked to learn that Ms. Heard had taken the dogs despite our discussions and my warnings of severe legal ramifications. I spoke with Jerry Judge shortly afterwards, who explained that Ms. Heard had insisted on bringing them to Australia. At Exhibit KM2, pages 10 to 11, are the messages exchanged between me and Ms. Dombrowski and Mr. Duders when they learned that Ms. Heard had gone to Australia with the dogs. My declaration for the Australia proceedings. As stated at paragraph 9 of my first witness statement, on or about October 2015, Ms. Heard requested that I make a false statement regarding the dog's illegal entrance into Australia. When I expressed that I was extremely uncomfortable with this, Ms. Heard said to me, "Well, I want your help on this. I wouldn't want you to have a problem with your job." It became very apparent to me that Ms. Heard was threatening my job stability unless I cooperated with providing a declaration that supported her false account for the Australia proceedings. Because of this, I felt extreme pressure to cooperate, despite knowing this would involve being untruthful. On October 13, 2015, I signed a declaration for the Australian proceedings that discussed the circumstances in which Ms. Heard brought her and Mr. Depp's dogs into Australia. See Exhibit KM2, pages 12 to 13. This declaration was prepared by Ms. Heard's US lawyer in this matter. That declaration contained statements that were not entirely truthful. It was not true that Ms. Kate James, Ms. Heard's assistant, was responsible for the paperwork and had not completed it. That this was the reason why Ms. Heard travelled with the dogs to Australia without the necessary paperwork. The true position is that I was responsible for the paperwork, which I could not obtain in time, and that Ms. Heard was fully aware of this in advance of travelling to Australia with the dogs. The lawyers with conduct of the matter were Ms. Heard's lawyer in the US, with whom I dealt primarily. Ms. Heard also had Australian counsel at Athurst. I was told by the US and Australian counsel that my statement, in the terms that they had drafted on Ms. Heard's behalf, would be integral to the outcome of the proceedings. I was told that I was going to have to travel to Australia to testify in person on Ms. Heard's behalf. Ms. Heard knew that she was asking me to lie under duress, and from what she said to me, it was clear to me that I was essentially being told by her that my job would be at risk if I did not agree to her demands. I was very relieved that the matter then settled and I was not going to be asked to lie in person in Australia. My attempt to seek legal advice. I was never comfortable with the fact that I had been given a statement that was not entirely truthful, but as long as Ms. Heard was still with Mr. Depp, I did not feel able to take steps to remedy this without there being a risk to my job. Around late May 2016, Ms. Heard filed for divorce from Mr. Depp. A few weeks later, on June 23, 2016, I retained the services of the law firm Huang Yabra Singh and Mayer LLP, now Halpern May Yabara Gerlberg LLP, in order to seek advice on retracting my declaration in the Australian proceedings. I felt I could take this step at this time because Ms. Heard no longer had control or influence over my job. This was my attempt to right a wrong. This effort was completely independent of Mr. Depp, and I personally incurred all of the legal costs. Please see the letter from HMYG confirming the time of my instructions enclosed at page 14 of Exhibit KM2. Through HMYG, I then retained an Australian barrister, Robert Rankin, on 14th of July 2016, for specialist advice concerning my potential criminal liability. I sought advice as to the implications in Australia arising from the false statement provided by me in a statutory declaration tendered in criminal proceedings in Queensland. The prospect of avoiding prosecution by making a voluntary disclosure as to the falsity of such statements, and the steps I would need to take to make a voluntary disclosure. I very much wanted to understand the process and to explain the pressure that I had been under to sign a statement that Ms. Heard knew to be false. In August 2016, I resigned from my position with Mr. Depp because I was no longer working and my legal bills were costly. It was no longer financially feasible for me to continue pursuing this matter. Following the proceedings, Ms. Heard continued to travel with her dog and even made a joke of the Australia incident with her caption on social media. Please see photographs at page 15 to 17 of Exhibit KM2. Savannah McMillan. I do not believe that Ms. Heard would have been concerned about the position I was put in and that I was being compelled to lie to the authorities in Australia. I understand that Ms. Heard was prepared to lie directly to the Department of Homeland Security in September 2014 in relation to her assistant, Savannah McMillan. I have seen the letter that was sent to them from Ms. Heard denying that Ms. McMillan was an employee. I understand that this letter was already been disclosed in these proceedings. I enclose examples of text messages and emails at pages 18 to 28 of Exhibit KM2 from between April 2014 to March 2016, to which I was copied where Ms. McMillan is active in the role of Ms. Heard's assistant. I believe that the facts stated in this witness statement are true. I understand that proceedings for contempt of court may be brought against anyone who makes or causes to be made a false statement in a document verified by a statement of truth without an honest belief in its truth. Signed, Kevin Murphy, 23rd of June 2020.